Literally everyone I live with has told me that this setup for this intro looks exactly like Nikki Jakey and that I'm talking like Nikki Jakey while recording this. So just bear with me here.
I'm aware that a lot of you niggas don't like me, but I don't give a fuck.
Dark Souls 3 has a lot of problems, and I'm mad about it. I know a lot of people are mad about it, but I'm more mad than they are about it. But today, I'm not here to talk about all the problems that most people bring up, like horrible hitboxes, teleporting dogs, too much fan service, the lack of interconnectivity in the worlds, R1 spam, the lore, PvP problems, too many bonfires, bonfire placement, enemy placement, how bad the story is, or the fact that bosses aren't hard enough. This is going to be more about my small nitpicks that I can't stand about this game, such as the fact that I can't make a beautiful pastel-haired anime waifu to play as because everyone ends up turning out butt ugly every single time I try to do so. So without further dudes, let's get right into it. Here we go. So in all seriousness, Dark Souls 3 is actually one of my favorite games. I'd say it's probably top 5 of all time for me. I really enjoyed it. But I just thought this would be kind of a fun video to make so that my fiance doesn't have to continue listening to me gripe about the same things over and over and over again. To give a little context, I wasn't really much of a gamer girl for most of my life. I had N64 when I was younger, and then a PlayStation 1. And then from them, I didn't really touch a console until my one of my old roommates moved out and gave me his PS3, and this was after the PS4 had even come out. And the first game that really got me into playing games was Dark Souls 2. And ever since then, I've been a huge fan of the Dark Souls series. I love Dark Souls 2. Bloodborne's my favorite game of all time. And Dark Souls 3 was a great experience going through the first time, save for some of these minor problems that I'm about to mention. Ugly, ugly, ugly. Dark Souls 3 is ugly, 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 fugly, wugly. The whole game, I get, is supposed to talk about the circle of fire coming to an end or whatever, and that's cool or whatever, and it's all ashy. But this game is ugly to the point where I'd say it's quite ugly, to be honest, to be frank. I don't enjoy looking at it. Every other Dark Souls game has a very distinct color palette to it. When I look at Dark Souls 2, which is the best looking in my opinion, it's got all these bright colors. All the areas are, they have a certain style to them that makes every different area, despite the problems in that game, they seem to stand out and are highly contrasted from one another. A big problem I have with Dark Souls 3 is that I don't remember where's what and what's where and who's Waldo and what did happen to Carmen Sandiego. But this game, I cannot stand the visuals in it, which does lead me to my next point: character designing. God, these people are ugly. I always, whenever possible, try to cosplay, like I said, as a beautiful pastel-haired anime waifu. But in this game, that's just not possible. Making characters that actually look kind of good is difficult, to say the least. None of the other games have this problem. Even the first one, designing people in that, they look somewhat normal, as far as game standards are concerned, but dear God, these people are ugly. Ganky, ganky, ganky. This game is ganky. I would even go as far to say that it is ganky, to be frank. And I think part of what makes it so annoying, despite the fact that there are so many enemies, is just the boring enemy design. I'd say when I think of the enemies of this game, like 80% of what comes up are just people or humanoid type enemies that are holding a sword. And when it's not someone holding a sword, it's a weird slug thing that basically does nothing. And it's just not a very fun enemy design, which leads to boring areas, boring fights. More often than not, I just run past the enemies just to get to the boss fight. And I think in all the other games I really enjoy, I'll actually take the time, even on a boss run, to at least knock out a couple of the people. But in this game, it's just not something I enjoy doing. And a compounded problem with that is the fact that there are so many of them. I know some of my friends have said that Dark Souls 2 seems the most ganky, but in this game, some of these boss runs are painful to get through without running into people. They're just everywhere. Everywhere you look, left, right, up, down, above you, below you, in your dreams. They're everywhere. I can't stand it. The poison in this game is pointless, and the sound hurts my ears. All of Farron Keep is poison. It doesn't drain your health fast enough for it to really matter, and you just have to sit there listening to that sizzling sound. It's boring, it's pointless, it doesn't add enough of that terrifying, the clock is ticking factor. Like in Dark Souls 2, when you got poisoned, you were basically boned unless you used a healing item. But in Dark Souls 3, I find that usually something else is going to kill me, or I'm going to get where I need to be, or be able to chug one Estus, and then something will work out before the poison even has a chance to do anything. The magic. Everyone knows that the magic in Dark Souls 3 is not very powerful. Doing a dedicated magic build in this game is not feasible for the most part, which is unfortunate because the first run through when I went into Dark Souls 2, I didn't know anything about it, and to me, being a sorcerer was kind of alluring for whatever reason. I knew that the combat was challenging in this series, but I didn't really know anything about it beyond that. So I just went with magic and had a great time doing it. Found out later that magic is basically the easy mode. I really didn't do much melee at all in that game until about maybe 4 or 5 hours into it, because the magic was actually a feasible way to run through it. But in this game, of course, that's simply not an option for most people. On top of that, the sound that the casting makes in Dark Souls 2 is much cooler. And anyone who disagrees is just wrong. You're wrong. You're just wrong. Sorry, you're wrong. The few areas in this game that have incoming but unseeable arrows are annoying. That I understand there's a tell that the game gives you by this sound that something's getting closer, but I've never really understood the fairness to that. It's not fun to run through. At least in Bloodborne, with the Gatling gun enemy, you can see the bullets coming for you, and they're not undodgeable by any means, but they do add a high level of stress to the area at Old Yharnam. And that is one of the most memorable parts of the first third of the game for me, or maybe first quarter of the game. That's an area I always look forward to getting to. The NPC battle at the top of the tower is a lot of fun, and it's simply much better than these incoming gigantic arrows that just do very little to improve the areas of the game. Again, all of these problems, like I said, are just minor gripes. This is just a fun video idea that I had in mind and have wanted to do for quite a while. So thank you for watching. I know a lot of people, if anybody sees this, will think that these gripes are stupid, but y'all know this is just my opinion, right? So thank you again. Dark Souls 3 really is a great game. Again, one of my favorite games, but certainly there are some things in this game that could be improved upon.